How do you know if you grew up being raised by or at least influenced by a narcissist? Well, there are a few signs. Maybe your mom was like Miss Perfect and everybody thought she could do no wrong. Maybe your dad was one of those dudes who was like everybody's BFF out in the world. That doesn't necessarily mean they were narcissists, but if they were, when you got home, your dad was no longer Mr. Wonderful and your mom, maybe she wasn't quite so kind, or she was very demanding, or she was very concerned about her image. You were the only one who really understood who they were. You were expected to be perfect instead of a child. You were expected to be strong. You were expected to be something that maybe you weren't. When you're raised by a narcissist, a lot of times you grow up feeling like something's wrong with you. And sometimes you might even recognize that your parents aren't like other parents, and maybe those people should get help and try to fix themselves. But the fact of the matter is that as a child, you know better than to request that your parents fix themselves. You know better than to actually request much of anything from your parents. Today I want to start with a story that is modified from a story that came from one of my clients about how, starting very early in her life, this client knew that no matter what she did, her mother just couldn't love her the way other mothers seem to love their children. For the sake of the story, I'm going to call her Jana. Take a look. When Jana was a little girl, she learned how to play the piano, and since her mother never seemed to be proud of her for anything, Jana decided that she was going to do something really special for her mother's birthday, and she hoped that somehow her mother would finally be proud of her. Since she learned how to play the piano, she decided she was going to write a song for her mom's birthday, and she knew there was nothing that could stand in the way of her mom being proud of this one. She truly believed that if she worked hard enough on the song, her mom would really understand, and she did everything she could do. Jana imagined that her mother would be so happy that she would hug her and tell her she was good and talented. Jana said she worked on how she would do her hair, what she would wear. She was so excited about this opportunity to show her mom how much she loved her. Jana said she worked on the song harder than she'd ever worked on anything in her life up to that point. She wrote and rewrote the song. She wrote lyrics, and she made it as loving and kind as possible because she wanted her mother to feel the love that Jana felt so deeply in her heart. Jana worked on the song for weeks, hoping against hope that somehow her mother would feel and hear the love in the lyrics and the music she played. Jana thought that if she could just show her mother how much she loved her, her mother would love her back. She had always assumed that something was wrong with her. She couldn't understand why some kids' mothers seemed to really care how they felt and what they thought and what they wanted, and Jana's mother seemed distant and cold and unloving. She was always angry, and Jana could never do anything right. She would punish Jana for everything that Jana did or said or thought, and Jana just figured, hey, I'm just not quite good enough yet, so maybe this will help. When it was time to sit down and play the song, things didn't go exactly as planned. She said, I felt like my mom would finally really be proud of me. She went to play the song for her mother. She said, Mom, have a seat. I want you to hear this song I wrote for you. It's for your birthday. And as she did, her mother noticed that Jana hadn't taken out the garbage that day, which was one of her chores. She got angry and she stood there very annoyed while Jana played the song. And shortly after that, she screamed at Jana to get the trash taken out. Then she blew off the song, Jana said, and continued to be angry. Jana said, I felt crushed. It was like the wind had been knocked out of me. I was angry and confused, and I just felt like I couldn't be good enough. She said that she repeated this cycle until she was an adult. She said it was constantly never being good enough, never being validated. She said, I embodied my mother's assessment of me. I really felt like I was not even a whole person. The choices she made for the first 30 years of her life were completely based on her mother's manipulation. Jana said she was always trying to do what she knew her mother would want, alternating with what she knew she would hate. She was constantly struggling with invalidation, and her mother was the cause of it. Every time Jana looked for validation from her mother would shut it down quickly. Why did this happen? And what was this all about? Whether she knew it or not, Jana's mother clearly undermined her feelings, ignored her emotions, made her feel like she just wasn't really a whole person. What it came down to was that for Jana, as for many children of narcissistic mothers, she was only allowed to feel whatever her mother thought was appropriate for her to feel. That meant her mother could treat her however she wanted to and could manipulate and maneuver each situation to her advantage. What do narcissistic mothers say when you make a choice they don't agree with? You only did that to hurt me. You're so ungrateful. You never stop to think. You are so selfish. This is never going to work. Everything she does is something she can deny, or at least according to her. A narcissistic mother tends to work in weird ways. Now, do I think that she loves her children? Yes, up to a point. Do I think it's a healthy, normal love? No. She loves her children, like I said, like they're an extension of herself. And so she becomes especially disappointed and devastated even when her children go outside of the little box that she's painted for them on the ground. And what I mean is, a lot of times a narcissistic mother is going to have a really specific vision for her children. She's going to be like, well, I want you to be, let's say, I don't know, a teacher or whatever. And let's just say it's a teacher. It could be whatever it is, you know. The child says, Mom, I don't really want to be a teacher. I really want to be a truck driver or whatever. Mom is incredibly disappointed and horribly humiliated and embarrassed and blah, blah, blah. Or, you know, Mom wants you to go to this college or that college and you choose a different college and, you know, you're evil and you're the bad kid and da, 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 da. I think one of the most telling signs of a narcissistic mother is that she denies her child individual self. She denies her child the ability to not be an extension of herself. She denies her child selfhood, independence. She denies her child the right to be a real person. And she has no empathy for the way that child feels. In fact, whether she states it out loud or not, that child in her mind exists only as an extension of herself and only to serve her own selfish needs. Narcissistic mothers often have a golden child and they have a scapegoat child. And what I have found personally throughout my, through doing my coaching work that I do is that almost like literally 99% of us, 90% of us came out of homes where we had at least one narcissistic parent. It's not always the mother, but it is very often the mother. And I think part of the reason for this is that, narcissistic fathers tend to either control or distance themselves from their children. Narcissistic fathers will become jealous of their boys and they will become controlling of their girls. Narcissistic mothers have a whole different thing. They're jealous of their girls for weird, sick reasons sometimes, like because they're younger and more attractive, and because they're smarter, or because, they have a better life ahead of them, or they're, I have one client who is incredibly smart and educated, and she comes from a family that isn't quite as educated, and her mother just treats her horribly, constantly gaslights her. When she went through one of the most painful breakups of her life, her mother acted like it was nothing, and she acted like she was exaggerating and all of this stuff, and she wasn't. She was really being tortured. It was a really terrible situation.
How about some things that narcissistic mothers say when you're upset or you're crying about anything, and the mothers are annoyed by your emotions, which of course they feel are not real or relevant? Get over it. You're so dramatic. I'll give you something to cry about. I told you so. Why do things always affect you more than other people? These are the choices that you have made. Side note, these are the choices that you have made was a big favorite of my own narcissist parent. And in that situation, this was thrown at me anytime anything happened wrong in my life. For example, when I got divorced from my first husband, who was also a narcissist, I remember the first night that I left, I was required to go to this couples-only bowling party. And of course, I was no longer a couple. And so here I am, just having left my husband. I was devastated. I was destroyed emotionally. And I was crying the whole night. I couldn't stop crying. That evening, when we got back to the place I was staying, my narcissist parent attacked me and said that I needed to get over myself. I needed to move on. These are the choices that you have made. You have to deal with these choices. It was not good.
It's really easy for us to develop abuse amnesia, even when you do what I do for a living. It's easy to forget how difficult it was to go through the pain that we went through. And it's super easy for us to wonder, was it really all that bad? The silver lining in all of this is kind of gave me some insight that I'm really grateful for. And that is that I've managed to give my kids something that I always intended to give them, which was the support and the encouragement that they needed to be able to see themselves as real people, to understand that they are whole, they are legitimate, and they are worth being heard. I've helped them gain the knowledge that their thoughts, their feelings, their beliefs are valid and worth having and worth discussing. The understanding that they are loved unconditionally and that they deserve to be happy and healthy and whole and safe every day of their lives, and that there is power in their own voices. So in producing this video, in sharing this information with you, I gave my inner child a voice, but I also shared with you maybe a glimpse of something that resonates for you. If you're here because you want to prevent your own kids from experiencing this pain, or you're here because you want to reparent your own inner child, then this is the bottom line on what you need to know and the value that you can take from this video today. Your inner child or your actual child should each be able to embrace certain understandings about him or herself. And these include the following. Number one, you are a real person who is whole, legitimate, and worth being heard. Number two, your thoughts, your feelings, your beliefs, your ideas, they are valid and worth discussing. Number three, you are loved unconditionally, and you deserve to be safe, happy, healthy, and whole in your life. A side note on this one, being loved unconditionally as an adult is something that you can do for yourself, but you can't really expect from anyone else. So if you are the parent of the child that you're trying to help here, love that child unconditionally. If you are the person trying to reparent his or her inner child, start by loving yourself unconditionally. And finally, number four, your voice has power. Your voice has power, and you should use your voice to express yourself with love in the most effective way that you can. Don't stuff your emotions down. Deal with them. Express them to people who will listen and people who deserve to hear them. This brings me to the question of the day. And the question of the day is, do you feel like you might be the child of a narcissist, the adult child of a narcissist? Do you think you might have been raised by or otherwise influenced by a narcissist in your childhood? Share your thoughts, share your ideas, share your experiences in the comments section below, and let's talk about it. As always, thank you so much for being a part of my day and a part of my life. And hey, thanks for letting me be a part of yours. It really does mean a lot to me. Now, before I go, please make sure that you take a look at the videos I'm leaving for you here. And while you're at it, hit the subscribe button so we can stay connected and continue on this healing journey together. I'll see you soon.